All right, back again. Michael Linehan here in one of my favourite places again in Sofia by Endicott. Absolutely love this park. Beautiful day. Thought we weren't going to get much of a spring this year, but my God, just the colours in this place. It's absolutely amazing. Like where I'm from in Ireland, it's also like really green, but definitely different shades of green. And apparently, even though Sofia is like one of the most polluted cities in Europe, it's also one of the greenest, which is kind of strange, but I guess there's a little bit of a balance there. Anyway, today what I'm going to talk about is strength training, particularly its role when it comes to muscle hypertrophy. So what we used to know, or I guess what we've always known when it comes to hypertrophy, is that there is a optimal rep range within the 6 to 15-ish. You could even go a little bit higher towards 20 reps. But what we're essentially doing there is we are manipulating intensity and volume so that we can get the maximum amount of bang for our buck in the gym within a limited time frame before we get too fatigued. So the way we had previously, I guess, come to a conclusion about what was best was that it would be 3 to 4 sets within the 6 to 15 rep range or thereabouts. Obviously, there's different ways as well where you could do, 8 sets, for example, of 3 reps, doing something like a German volume training routine. But there or thereabouts, that was the kind of thought as the ideal way to do your volume and intensity when it comes to gaining muscle. So strength then gained a lot of popularity in the last few years, particularly among, let's say, folks who I would say are on this kind of evidence-based minimum effective dose type of a buzz. I don't know, for want of a better term. Sorry, my brain is super slow today, but there is this kind of movement, I think, in the fitness industry. It always goes in waves, but in the last 10 years or so, for people to kind of say, oh, this classic bodybuilding style of training is stupid because it's not functional, you're not really building strength, it's better to build musculature through strength training, because then you're doing both. It's kind of a power lifter's approach, or even as some people call it, power building. And it's actually funny, there's like a certain personality type that goes with it. It's like, from what I've seen in my clients anyway, and I was reminded of it yesterday when I was speaking to a young guy in his early 20s who was telling me about his programming and what he's doing, and he'd have a similar build to mine, but the difference is he's a programmer by profession. Very, just from speaking to him, I noticed a very logical guy. Wasn't really, how to say that, situationally aware. Very just up in his head, very, very logical. And I've often noticed that space, so that how would you say, 3x5 programming, 5x5, this kind of power building style of training, it's usually from guys with that kind of personality. It's really strange. It's almost like, certain people with certain temperaments gravitate towards certain training types. And I think there's a lot of truth to that, even if you look at Samata type theory, where there was a lot of potential for certain physical things, which then also translated into certain personality traits. I think there's more truth to it than the scientific community has been willing to admit. But anyway, I'm kind of going off on a tangent here. But that was one of the big trends, I think, that gripped the fitness space as training gained popularity. It's, let's say, for want of a better term, the nerds of the fitness space like to do these strength-based protocols to build hypertrophy. I don't think they're actually that effective, to be quite honest. I think they're effective for a cohort of individuals who are naturally inclined towards strength training, so therefore strength training will feel better to them, they will excel at it, so they'll keep doing it, and then they'll gain more muscle mass in the process. But for somebody who, let's say, struggles to gain muscle mass, or if you don't struggle but it's your primary goal and you actually don't care about strength or functionality, I think you're wasting a whole bunch of time on these 3x5, 5x5 type programs. And the way I would program them into anyone's like year of training into the macro cycle is to do maybe a 4 to 8 week maximum, I would say 4 to 6 weeks on one of these protocols, just to build your numbers up in terms of the load you're lifting, to then facilitate you to doing higher volume training at a heavier load than you used to be able to do maybe in the previous macro cycle. So I wouldn't make it like the staple of your training. I think the staple of your training absolutely needs to be more of a 3x8 to 15, maybe even adding a set once you get to like the top end of that. So once you get to like 3x15 reps on an isolation exercise, maybe 3x12 on a compound, then you would move to like 4 sets if you wanted to add more volume, or then increase the load. But I just don't think strength training is your strength, so like your ability to lift heavy weights, I don't think it's a good proxy at all for how much muscle mass you're gaining, because I've just seen so many individuals in my life who are incredibly strong, but they're really not, they haven't got a lot of muscle mass. And the reason being is that some people really do adapt to strength training because it's a neurological skill. It's to do with motor patterns, how you move, how you engage certain muscles in a sequence. It's a lot less to do with the process of hypertrophy, which is tearing the muscle and then allowing it to be rebuilt through your nutrition and through resting. So yeah, that's my thoughts on strength training. I think it has its place when it comes to hypertrophy, like where you almost set a foundation maybe once or twice a year by going on a very short mesocycle of strength training. If you're lifting for hypertrophy, I think once you've kind of hit any sort of a plateau, maybe 4 to 6 weeks in, switch to a hypertrophy training protocol at heavier loads than you would have previously, but lifting in that 8 to 15 rep ranges. You could even take what you're lifting at let's say 6 reps in your strength protocol and ramp all the way up to 15 reps per set, which is actually the way I do it in the first mesocycle in the Hard Gainer training plan. It's part of my book Hard Gains. So by the time this video is published, or maybe it'll be published soon and I'll edit it later, but anyway, the link to that book will be available in the description, so you can get that one as well. Alright, this video has been super long for what I was actually trying to say, because I don't know, today my brain is just kind of a little bit dead. But check back in for the next video.